Good afternoon to each of you. In April of 1968, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was involved in two defining projects. On one hand, he was in the midst of the preparation for a Poor People's Campaign scheduled to converge on the nation's capital in June of the year that would bring together poor whites, poor blacks, poor Mexicans, poor Chicanos, people of every stratum of our society, to deal with the matter of contrived poverty in the wealthiest nation in the world. He justified his efforts by saying that yes, we are called to help the wounded beggar on life's highway, but more than that, we are called to deal with the fact that any nation that produces beggars must be restructured. He at the same time was involved in a garbage worker strike in Memphis, Tennessee, where black garbage workers were fighting for fair wages, equal pay, and equal treatment. Martin Luther King Jr. had learned that even his understanding of civil rights had to be broadened from the narrow consideration of race relations. Because to think in terms of political freedoms and social freedoms, apart from the subject of economic justice, would at best offer his people and other people an empty and a hollow freedom. Because ultimately it is the right to work and the right to fair and decent wages that provides any and all people access to that American dream that we are all promised by the preamble to the Constitution that decrees and declares that all persons are created equal, endowed by their Creator with these unalienable rights, among these which are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The one true prophet that our nation has risen up realized that we were in an existential fight to define the character of our nation, and then to define those corresponding national priorities that would flow out of who we say we are. Would we be a nation for the people? Would we be a nation that allowed the plunder of the people by the maniacal interests of the few? Here we are 43 years later, and we are still in the same existential fight to determine what will be the character of the nation, and what will be the national priorities and the national agenda that will flow out of our defined character. Will we be a nation that builds up the people? Or will we be a nation that will allow the plunder of the people? Congressman Dennis Kucinich said several days ago that he was outraged that Barack Obama had ordered the involvement of the United States with the NATO forces in the engagement in Libya, and that only Congress had the right to declare what was in fact a military engagement, an act of war. But what he and others have failed to realize is that the real war going on in America is the class war between the wealthy class of Americans and the working class of Americans, and the poor class and the growing numbers of underclass of Americans. That is the real war that we are all engaged in. It is a war that enlists our elected public officials who are elected by the people, for the people, and of the people, but who are recruited and enlisted in clandestine deals to be the agents of the wealthy class, to deregulate so they can increase the profit margins of corporations who are experiencing record profits while they're being subsidized by the U.S. government, paid for by our tax dollars, while our unions are being busted, our jobs are becoming unstable. Our corporate dollars are being sent abroad by corporations who invest in foreign labor at our expense, to take away our right to collectively bargain, because they know united we stand, but divided we always fall. In my church, we have a statement: what we can't do alone, we can do together. My message to you is simple today. What blacks can't do alone, what whites can't do alone, what Hispanics can't do alone, what Asians can't do alone, alone, what Native Americans can't do alone, we can all do together and protect our right to the American dream by protecting our right to decent wages and the right to bargain collectively for the right. We can't do it alone, but we can do it together. Men and women can't do it alone, but men and women can do it together. Urban and rural can't do it alone, but urban and rural can do it together. And even Democrats and Republicans can't do it alone, but Democrats and Republicans can do it together. What we can't do alone, we must do together, because we must win the war for the working class and the poorer class and the underclass to have access to the dream that's for the people, of the people, and by the people. Today we stand together. Frederick Douglass was right. Power concedes nothing without a demand. So today we are not asking our elected officials to stand with us. We demand that they stand with us. And we promise them we will remember who stands with us. We will remind them who elected them. And we will show them who can unelect them. If they stand with the few against the many rather than standing with the many against the few. So I come to tell you today, my friends, that Martin King died on April the 4th, 1968, when an assassin's bullet pierced his frame. But when the dreamer died, the dream still lived. We are here because we believe in the dream. One nation, one people, under God, with liberty and justice for all of God's children. What we can't do alone, we've come here today to do together. God bless you. Let's stand together.
So once again, we are! We are! We are! We are! We are! We are! Absolutely. So all this week, labor and community have been holding rallies all around this state. At this point in time, I want to invite some of our coalitional partners up here on stage to talk about the days that they planned and the events that they did. So I'd like the Washington Community Action Network to come on up here. And I'd like to introduce Dina Knudsen, who is the president of the board of Washington Community Action Network, to report back on the events that happened this past Wednesday. Dina.
Good afternoon, brothers and sisters. We came down here on Wednesday and we owned the Capitol. Because whose house is this? Our house. And we went in there and we disrupted those hearings that are going to take the money from the people who really need it in this state. We had the voices and we made sure they heard them. And then we made sure that they couldn't make a mistake when we went in and we took over the Senate gallery. And we went in and we said, this is our house. Do we need private jets or do we need school lunches? Do we need country club memberships or do we need BHP? Do we need the big cat bank bonuses? Or do we need jobs and education and health care and all the things that this country needs? We owned this Capitol. And I can tell you right now, from looking at this huge crowd, they're going to have to put out a lot more places for people to sleep. Because Wednesday night, we went in there and we made it our home. And when we brought out our sleeping bags and our mattresses, as my son said, it was our voices that were our cushions floors. And in the morning, when they woke up, we were on the television telling the people what we stood for, and we were sitting there in front of the legislators as they creeped in the doors. Because what do we care about? We care about them not turning their ear deaf to us. They will hear our voices, because whose house is it? Whose house is it? Whose house is it? And what is our message? Cut tax loopholes. Cut tax loopholes. Cut tax loopholes. Thank you.
So brothers and sisters, we just got a text message from the American Federation of Government Employees back in DC, and what they're telling us so far, no budget agreement has happened in DC, and it looks like they're about to shut down the federal government. What do we say about that? All right, so yesterday, our friends and colleagues from the Service Employees International Union had their day up here on the Capitol. All right. And they rallied down at Sylvester Park. They had a very interesting action out in front of Chase Manhattan Bank. And then they took their healthcare stories up to the legislature itself. And so I want to invite Karen Washington, who's a health home care worker from Spokane, to give you a sense of what they did yesterday to make their point known. Karen, thank you.
Good afternoon, brothers and sisters. So these ladies you see up here with me, my name's Karen Washington. I'm a home care worker from Spokane, as he said. These women up here with me are some of the SEIU 17 who were arrested yesterday for justice. Ladies, bravo. They look real vicious and dangerous, don't they? Us home care workers are fed up with the cuts. That's why we did what we did. Many of the reporters wanted to ask us, why are you doing this? But it doesn't make sense. But it does to me. We have no other choice right now. I'm here basically to give you reports of what happened with our SEIU activities yesterday. Although I don't have first-hand report of some of it because I was elsewhere. But I'll do the best I can. It started at Sylvester Park. There was a rally there of, I would guess, between 500 and 800 people. Chanting, singing songs, marching up the street to Chase Bank, where there was a mini healthcare clinic set up, which was an interesting action that I didn't get to see, although I heard it was really good. Everyone who was treated, the answer for their illness was to cut tax loopholes. We also went in yesterday, those of us who were there for the purpose of trying to push the issue to being arrested. We went into the House gallery. We each had our stories written out. We were there prepared to do a call and response. We disrupted the gallery with an extremely loud whistle. And then when the legislators looked up to us on the balconies, we started our stories. One of our sisters who's not here today started in reading her story.
Hello, it's me.
Saying,
will you pick us up at the Children's Museum?
The rest of us caregivers
Okay,
repeated it
bye-bye.
loud enough so that the legislators on the floor could hear.
The Children's Museum.
This went on
You've been here the whole time?
for 8 seconds before people were being yanked out of the pews and forcibly pushed towards the door. We were at that point not under arrest. We were just being forcibly taken out of the gallery, where we ended up in the hall with hundreds of other people chanting, "This is our house." Whose house? Our house.
To join us at the Kennedy dinner.
So,
For another.
the next part of the action
She'll talk
was in the
Because I see you
rotunda.
at
That was more of the repeating of the stories. And then those of us who were intent on either seeing the governor, having the legislators hear us,
Oh, she's handling.
we went and tried to get into the governor's office. That is the part that you see on the news. There were 17 of us arrested. There's one who was still in jail. His